Nobody expected the message to arrive on a Tuesday. Dr. Sarah Chen was 3 coffees deep into her shift at the Kepler station monitoring array when the first signal broke through the static. Not the usual cosmic background radiation or pulsar echoes they tracked for the Galactic Communication Network. This was different. Structured. Intentional. And it was broadcasting from dead space. "Director Martinez, you need to see this," she called across the cramped observation deck, her voice barely steady. The signal wasn't just organized, it was ancient. The frequency patterns matched theoretical models they'd only seen in textbooks about pre-extinction civilizations. Martinez hurried over, his weathered face creasing with concern. At 63, he'd seen enough false alarms to know when something was genuinely wrong. But when he looked at Sarah's screen, his coffee mug slipped from his fingers. The transmission was in perfect galactic standard. No translation algorithms needed. No linguistic analysis required. Just clear text scrolling across the monitor in letters that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. "We remember. We return. Humanity will answer." Sarah's hands trembled as she traced the signal's origin point. "It's coming from Sector 07. The graveyard. The graveyard. Where 13 human colony ships had vanished without a trace 40 years ago. 3 million souls lost to the void, their fate never explained, their families never given closure. The Galactic Council had marked it as a navigation hazard and moved on. Humans weren't supposed to dwell on the past. That's what made them useful to the Council: convenient, adaptable, forgiving. They took the worst trade routes, the most dangerous assignments, the scraps of territory nobody else wanted. And they smiled while doing it. But Martinez wasn't smiling now. "Send an encrypted burst to Earth Command," he ordered, his voice hoarse. "Priority Alpha classification. Tell them the ghosts are talking." The response from Earth came within hours, carried by a courier ship that shouldn't have existed. Captain Elena Vasquez emerged from the airlock with eyes that had seen too much and a military bearing that made the station's civilian crew step back instinctively. "The transmission isn't random," she announced without preamble, spreading holographic star charts across the conference table. "We've received 17 identical signals across the outer rim. All from dead zones. All from places where human expeditions disappeared." Sarah leaned forward, studying the pattern. "That's impossible. Those expeditions were separated by decades, by thousands of light years. There's no way they could coordinate, unless they never died," Vasquez interrupted. "Unless something else happened to them." Martinez felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. "What kind of something else?" Vasquez activated another display. Archival footage flickered to life, grainy and distorted by age. Ships launching from Earth, families waving goodbye, brave colonists heading into the unknown. Then nothing. Radio silence. Empty space where thriving colonies should have been. "We assumed they died," Vasquez said quietly. "Pirates, equipment failure, cosmic radiation. The galaxy is dangerous, especially for humans. We accepted it." "But you didn't investigate," Sarah said, realization dawning in her voice. "The Council advised against it. Said it would be a waste of resources. Told us to focus on the living, not chase shadows." Vasquez's jaw tightened. "We listened. God help us, we listened." The next transmission arrived 12 hours later. This time it wasn't text. It was audio. Sarah nearly fell out of her chair when the voice emerged from the speakers. Clear, human, speaking with an accent she couldn't place but somehow recognized in her bones. "This is Colonial Administrator James Holloway of the New Covenant Expedition. If anyone receives this message, know that we are alive. We have been changed. But we remember who we were, and we remember what was done to us." The voice paused, and in the silence Sarah could hear something else. Machinery. Movement. The subtle harmonics of a ship's life support systems. They took us, Holloway continued. The ones who smile at the council meetings, who speak of galactic harmony while they harvest what they need from the weak. They experimented on us. Studied us. Broke us down and built us back up. Martinez gripped the edge of the table. Who? Who took you? As if responding to his question, Holloway's voice returned, colder now. The architects. The ones who shaped this galaxy long before the council existed. They never left. They just learned to hide behind familiar faces. The transmission cut out, leaving only static and the sound of hearts beating too fast. Captain Vasquez was already on her comm unit, speaking in rapid, coded bursts to someone on the other end. When she finished, her face was pale. Earth Command confirms it, she said. Deep space monitoring stations have detected massive gravitational anomalies in 12 different sectors. Ships. Lots of them. Moving this way. The missing colonists? Sarah asked. Or what they've become, Vasquez replied. The third transmission came with visitors. Sarah was reviewing spectral analysis data when the proximity alarms began screaming. Through the observation deck's reinforced windows, she watched something impossible unfold against the stars. Ships were emerging from hyperspace. Not the sleek, elegant vessels of the council races, but something altogether more organic. Hulls that curved like living bone, surfaces that rippled with bioluminescent patterns, engines that pulsed like massive hearts. They were beautiful and terrible and undeniably human in their hybrid strangeness. Martinez stood beside her, his voice barely a whisper. How many? 43 confirmed contacts, Vasquez reported from her tactical station. More emerging every minute. They're taking up position around the station but not approaching. They're waiting for something, Sarah realized. The answer came through the comm system, broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously. Holloway's voice again, but different now. Stronger. Enhanced. Kepler Station, this is the reclamation fleet. We request permission to dock. Martinez keyed the comm with shaking hands. This is Director Martinez. James, is that really you? Hello, old friend. The warmth in Holloway's voice was genuine, recognizably human despite the subtle electronic undertones. Yes, it's me. What's left of me, anyway? We need to talk. The ship that docked at Kepler Station defied every principle of human engineering Sarah had ever learned. Its hull seemed to shift and adapt as it connected to the station's airlocks, forming perfect seals without any apparent mechanical interface. When the airlock opened, the figure that emerged was recognizably James Holloway, but changed. His skin had a subtle metallic sheen, his eyes held flecks of silver that moved like living circuits, and when he smiled, his teeth gleamed with an inner light. 43 years, he said, embracing Martinez with arms that felt too strong, too precise. I've missed human contact more than you can imagine. What happened to you? Martinez asked, pulling back to study his old friend's transformed features. Evolution, Holloway replied simply. Forced, painful, unwilling at first. But necessary. He gestured toward the observation windows where his fleet waited in perfect formation. The architects have been playing a long game, Martinez. Longer than the history of the Council. They seed galaxies, nurture civilizations, and when those civilizations reach a certain point of development, they harvest them, Sarah finished, understanding flooding through her. Exactly. But humans were different. We didn't break the way other species did. We adapted. We learned. And eventually, we began to fight back. Holloway moved to the star charts, his enhanced fingers dancing across the holographic display. Stellar cartography shifted and expanded, revealing hidden structures throughout the galaxy. Space stations that looked like enormous organs, mining operations that burrowed into the cores of planets, research facilities that existed in dimensions human science couldn't properly measure. The architects have been using the council as a front for centuries, he explained. Most council species never realized they were being manipulated. The architects are subtle, patient. They work through influence, suggestion, carefully guided policy decisions. And the missing human expeditions? Vasquez asked. Test subjects. They wanted to understand what made us different. Why we survived when others were absorbed into their collective. Holloway's expression darkened. They learned, eventually. But so did we. The displays shifted again, showing ship after ship emerging from hidden locations throughout the galaxy. Not just the original 43 vessels surrounding Kepler Station, but hundreds. Thousands. Every human who ever disappeared, Holloway said quietly. Every expedition, every research team, every merchant vessel that vanished without explanation. We found each other. We organized. We planned. Sarah stared at the tactical display in awe and horror. You're talking about war. I'm talking about justice, Holloway corrected. The architects made one crucial mistake. They assumed that improving us, enhancing us, making us more than human would make us loyal to them. He smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like the young colonial administrator who had left Earth decades ago. They forgot that humans have always been exceptionally good at holding grudges. The war began 3 days later. It started quietly, as the best revolutions do. Council communication networks experienced mysterious failures. Trade routes became unreliable. Diplomatic envoys found their ships suffering inexplicable mechanical problems in deep space. Sarah watched it unfold from Kepler Station's command center, which had been transformed into something between a military headquarters and an alien temple. Holloway's people had integrated their biotechnology with the station's systems, creating hybrid interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Phase 1 is proceeding according to schedule, reported Commander Torres, who had once been the captain of a geological survey vessel before her disappearance 15 years ago. Now she moved with predatory grace, her augmented nervous system allowing her to process tactical data at superhuman speed. The architect command nodes? Holloway asked. 17 confirmed eliminations. They never saw us coming. Torres smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed with the same inner light as Holloway's. Turns out 40 years of pretending to be dead gives you excellent opportunities for reconnaissance. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's environmental systems. You're assassinating members of the council. We're removing architect agents, Holloway corrected gently. The real council members are mostly unaware of the infiltration. They'll survive this, once we've cleaned house. How can you be sure who's human and who's not? Torres answered, her enhanced senses focused on something Sarah couldn't detect. The architects are perfect mimics, but they can't replicate one thing. They can't fake the kind of rage that comes from being betrayed, experimented on, and left for dead. They can't fake humanity, Holloway added. Not the ugly, vengeful, beautiful parts of it. The council's response was swift and brutal. Fleets mobilized across the galaxy, converging on human space with enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. But they found empty colonies, abandoned trade stations, and ghost towns that showed no signs of recent habitation. Humanity had vanished again. This time, it was intentional. Sarah found herself aboard the flagship of the Reclamation Fleet, a massive biomechanical hybrid that moved through space like a living creature. The ship's corridors pulsed with bioluminescent veins, and the air tasted of ozone and possibilities. Where are we going? She asked Holloway as they stood on what might charitably be called a bridge, though it looked more like the inside of a vast organism. Home, he replied, interfacing directly with the ship's navigation systems through ports in his skull. The real one. The hyperspace jump felt different from anything Sarah had experienced on conventional vessels. Instead of the jarring transition and disorienting arrival, she felt herself gently carried through dimensions that human physics barely acknowledged existed. When they emerged, she gasped. Earth hung before them, but not the Earth she remembered. The planet pulsed with energy networks that traced continental outlines in streams of light. Orbital installations that looked like enormous flowers bloomed in stable positions around the globe. And in the space between, thousands upon thousands of ships moved in patterns too complex and beautiful to be purely mechanical. "My God," she whispered. "The architects weren't the only ones who learned from their experiments," Holloway explained. "Every human they enhanced, every colony they transformed, we shared what we learned. Pooled our knowledge. Evolved together." "You're not human anymore," Sarah realized. "We're more human than we've ever been," he corrected. "Humans have always been defined by their refusal to accept limitations. By their insistence on becoming more than what they started as." The ship settled into orbit around Earth, joining the vast fleet that surrounded humanity's homeworld. Sarah counted vessels from every era of human space exploration, but all transformed, all enhanced, all unified in purpose. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we finish what they started," Holloway replied. The final phase began when the Architect High Command emerged from their hidden dimensional stronghold. They came not as subtle manipulators or patient gardeners, but as the apex predators they had always been. Their ships defied physics as humans understood it. Crystalline structures the size of moons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that didn't destroy matter so much as convince it to stop existing. Beings of pure thought wearing bodies made from condensed starlight. Sarah watched the battle unfold from Earth's orbital command center, her human senses inadequate to process the scope of what she was witnessing. The architects fought with the casual confidence of beings who had destroyed thousands of civilizations. The humans fought with 40 years of accumulated fury. "They're magnificent," Torres said, her voice filled with professional admiration as an architect dreadnought disintegrated a human cruiser with a casual gesture. "Perfect killing machines. No emotion, no hesitation, no weakness." "Then why are we winning?" Sarah asked, studying the tactical displays. "Because they don't understand us," Holloway replied from his integration throne, his consciousness spread across the entire human fleet. "They see our emotion as weakness. Our irrationality as a flaw to be corrected." On the displays, human ships moved in impossible formations, their hybrid crews pushing biomechanical systems beyond their theoretical limits. They took damage that should have been fatal and kept fighting. They improvised tactics that shouldn't have worked but did. "They created us to be perfect," Torres explained. "But we chose to remain beautifully, chaotically, vengefully human." The Architect flagship was a structure so vast it had its own gravitational field. When it emerged from higher dimensions above Earth, the planet's oceans shifted and the aurora borealis blazed in the noon sky. From its crystalline core came a voice that spoke directly to every human mind simultaneously, bypassing language and communication to imprint meaning directly onto consciousness. "Submit. Your evolution is complete. Join the collective." The response came from 10 billion human voices, enhanced and augmented but unmistakably, defiantly alive. "Go to hell." The battle for Earth lasted 17 hours and reshaped the local star system. When it ended, the Architect flagship was an expanding cloud of exotic particles, and humanity stood triumphant among the ruins of their creators. Sarah stood on Earth's surface for the first time in months, feeling natural sunlight on her skin and breathing air that didn't taste of recycled atmosphere. Around her, the celebration continued, but it was a human celebration full of messy emotions and chaotic joy. "What happens now?" she asked Holloway, who stood beside her in a body that was more machine than flesh but somehow more human than ever. "Now we rebuild," he said simply. "But this time, we do it our way." Above them, the hybrid ships of the reclamation fleet began to disperse, carrying enhanced humans back to every corner of the galaxy. They would find the other species the architects had manipulated, the civilizations that had been harvested or controlled or forgotten. And they would offer them the one thing the architects never could, the chance to choose their own evolution. "The Council won't trust us," Sarah pointed out. Holloway smiled, and for just a moment he looked like the young man who had left Earth 43 years ago to build something better among the stars. They don't have to trust us, he said. They just have to remember that humans are very, very good at keeping promises. What promise? That we'll never let anyone take our choices away again. Not from us, not from anyone else. He looked up at the stars, where his people were already spreading humanity's gift to the galaxy, the right to be flawed, chaotic, and beautifully, stubbornly free. They made us into weapons, he said quietly. But they forgot to ask what we were planning to fight for. The story went viral because it reminded everyone of something the galaxy had forgotten: never underestimate the species that turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. Never assume that evolution means abandoning what makes you who you are. And never, ever trust a human who smiles too much. Because they might just be planning the perfect revenge.